2019, there were around 80 million displaced people around the world, and only 26 million were under this official status as refugee. And in many cases, there are refugees who live in refugee camps in bordering countries. So, for example, if they're a Syrian refugee, many of them go to Turkey and live in refugee camps, but also there are many refugees who do not live in refugee camps, and they are placed within large urban centers in neighboring countries. This is the case with many Afghani clients of ours who are from Afghanistan, but then go to neighboring Pakistan and live in, large cities there, awaiting transport to the US. So out of this number, 26 million are refugees, 45.7 are internally displaced, meaning they have no home within their own country, but they still remain within their own country, awaiting arrival to the United States or wherever they're going. This number is not in respect to the United States only. So this figure comes out to 1% of the world's population being displaced or not having a permanent home due to war, conflict, famine, various reasons. And then here I put the figure says it accounts for the top source countries, meaning where the most refugees come from around the world. And those are Syria, Venezuela, Afghanistan, South Sudan, and Myanmar. And I know the figure might be a bit small, but I thought this was a good figure to put, mostly because our population in Albuquerque doesn't necessarily reflect those numbers. Okay. So here, these are the main locations from which our clients, our refugee clients, are from. So the bulk of new arrivals we get are from the Democratic Republic of Congo. For the past few years, the vast majority of our clients have been from the DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo. However, we do have a few clients that come from Central African Republic and other bordering countries like Cameroon, and many newcomers from the DRC have been housed in refugee camps in Tanzania. So we do get quite a few arrivals from Tanzania. So the bulk of our, I guess, new arrival clientele is from Central Africa. In the past, we have gotten newcomers from Afghanistan and from Syria, but in the past few years, the number of arrivals from the Middle East has decreased significantly, although that might change in the future. So these numbers here don't necessarily reflect the global figures that I've shown you before. We don't really have many clients from Myanmar or from Venezuela and such. So then I wanted to go over the resettlement process to kind of, I guess, debunk some myths that exist regarding how the refugee process is facilitated. I think many people see in the media that, for example, the European refugee crisis sometimes misconstrues the process in which refugees arrive to the United States. So it is a very official process, and it does begin with the United Nations and kind of trickles down to more local regions and organizations. So the first step is that refugees will arrive to refugee camps or relocate in another country, and often they'll stay in these camps and regions for many years. So we've had clients that have been in refugee camps for 10 years before being relocated to the United States. And then while they're in camps or while they're in urban centers waiting to be relocated, they apply through the United Nations to be resettled in countries like the United States or Germany, Turkey, and various countries. And so the kind of umbrella organization above all of this is the United Nations. So they complete the application for resettlement. And then following that, let's see here, following that application process, which takes a long time, it's not just like a job application you fill out in a week and everything comes into place. It can take many years due to waiting lists and such. But after the application process, there is an interview that the UN conducts with everyone that is to be resettled. And then, let me see, following that, that interview and I would say the acceptance stage of resettlement, those who are to be resettled in the United States are tested for tuberculosis and various other ailments like malaria and TB and such. And then also they complete a pre-arrival cultural orientation. We also do a post-arrival cultural orientation in Albuquerque after newcomers have been here for a while, but there's a pre-arrival orientation and that post-arrival orientation. And then after this, they are relocated to whichever refugee resettlement organization has the capacity to take them. So they don't get to choose, I'd love to go to San Francisco or New York City. They don't choose where they go. It's mostly a kind of an algorithm that's put in place where, well, there's room here, you'll be resettled here. And then they arrive at the airport and are picked up by, in Lutheran Family Services case, by the case manager, and the moving in and resettlement process begins in Albuquerque. So this whole process can take many, many years. It is not really it's not necessarily a chaotic first come, first serve kind of situation. There's lots of steps in place. And so here I wanted to put the kind of trickle down pyramid where the umbrella organization that is involved in resettling refugees in the United States is Lutheran Immigration Refugee Services, which then refers clients to the entire organization of Lutheran Family Services, which is located in Denver, and then are further referred to our branch in Albuquerque if they're to be resettled in Albuquerque. And our organization, our branch in Albuquerque, has been here since 2012. So we're still a fairly young branch. It's only been, 8-9 years. So actually, before I move on, are there any questions about the first part of the presentation regarding the global system of things? Perfect. So then I wanted to go over some of the programs we have in place at our branch to help refugees and asylum seekers settle into society and become self-sufficient. That's our main goal at Lutheran Family Services, is to get families to be self-sufficient, whether it's learning English, establishing financial routine, establishing a consistent job, and so on. And so we have several employment programs in place, several economic development programs in place to achieve that financial self-sufficiency. We have what we call IDA, individual development accounts, and this is for helping clients to build a savings account. So it's a matched savings system where, let's say, a client says, okay, I will save $5,000. They are then matched with another $5,000 for a total of $10,000 in the savings. And this helps with purchasing a home, purchasing a car, and in some cases, starting a small business. And then we have our micro enterprise development program, which is specifically for those who want to build small businesses. So this is mostly to do with, you know, construction or contracting businesses, restaurants, catering, and so forth. You know, we have clients who've had, they've created, you know, African craft businesses, kind of taking their skills and what they know from back home and utilizing that here in the United States. And so that our micro enterprise development program is for businesses specifically. And then we also have the Refugee Agricultural Partnership Program, or RAP, and this is mostly for clients who are interested in agricultural development. You know, many of our clients, especially from Central Africa, have lots of experience in agriculture and horticulture, and so this is an opportunity for them to participate in. We have a farm. I have a picture of that in a little bit. A farm where clients can grow kale, basil. They can grow, if the climate permits, they can grow crops from back home, and then they can sell those at least pre-COVID, at farmers markets and such. Now, during the pandemic, there are other measures in place that allow for students to, or not students, for clients to participate. At one point, we had basil, lots of basil growing on the farm, and so students took all of that basil and made pesto, and that pesto was sold around Albuquerque and generated some profit for the clients involved. So with all of these economic development programs, students are required to complete a financial literacy course, which is led by Jennifer at Lutheran Family Services. And, you know, those are mainly classes to do with what is a checking account, what is a savings account, what is credit, how do you build credit, how do you not, you know, deteriorate your credit, and so on. So this is the bulk of our economic development process. A part of the RAP program, we also have Beyond the Plate. So this was mostly comprised of Middle Eastern women who are very good cooks, and they cook delicious Middle Eastern food, and so they wanted to use their talents to build some profit and to you know, create a community amongst women in Albuquerque. And so this is a vocational culinary program where clients can learn to create a catering business and you know, sell their food for events and such. And of course, during COVID, this has changed a bit, where we can't gather and have cooking classes or in-person classes, but I believe the program is working on a virtual class that will allow for students to get certification in catering or food safety certification, which is imperative for catering businesses. So again, a lot of these programs look quite different now that we're in a virtual system than before, because it's hard to gather in person in large groups, and you know, we don't recommend it for anyone, of course, but especially for our clients who might have different, I guess, understandings of COVID or different perspectives on gathering in person. So this is a picture of the farm that we have, a part of our organization. It's called Tres Hermanas Farm, and I believe it's located kind of in the Rio Grande area. Of course, that's probably where the most fertile land in Albuquerque is. And we've had lots of African women involved in that program, and they love the farm because it's something that's familiar to them and allows for community. And nowadays, during the pandemic, the farm is still functioning, but I think it's much more controlled because we can't have large gatherings at the farm. And then these are some pictures of, again, pre-COVID activities. We host our English classes at the St. Timothy's Lutheran Church on Washington and Copper. And that's where I used to teach English. And it was such an amazing program to have at that church and gather together. But of course, now we have our ESL classes online. We have some students here who are participating in financial literacy. And then we would have special events that were geared towards students wanting to enter a certain career path. So many of them were for nursing assistants and, caretaking. Okay. So then another program we offer is intensive case management, and this is sort of an umbrella term for several programs, including the survivors of torture and victims of trafficking assistance programs, which provides, as it said, of course, intensive mental health focus and financial assistance for clients that fall under this category. And so it's a 1-year program where clients are referred to Julia at our program, and she has various sort of group settings where clients can gather together and, sort of like a group therapy session in a way, and also just opportunities for that community to support one another, since it is a very, intense and very difficult subject matter. And so again, the goal is self-sufficiency in that clients can then themselves access, mental health care, physical health care, and educational opportunities afterwards. And then finally, this is my program, the Refugee School Impact Program. And this is for newcomer students who have been in the United States less than 3 years. And so the goal is, again, self-sufficiency in acclimating to American public school systems. And I assist with school enrollment. So when someone first comes, I help them navigate the quite complicated online enrollment system nowadays. And I also provide education orientation, which outlines, expectations for public school and various codes that are implemented. I work with bus passes, which are not necessarily needed nowadays, but hopefully soon I could start providing bus passes to students to go to the physical classroom. And then also I work with matching volunteer tutors to students who are in need of academic assistance, which nowadays is more important than it ever was, because as you might know, the Albuquerque public school system is fully online nowadays, and this has caused so many issues with students' academic process, because it's not only do they have to know how to use a computer and submit homework online and navigate these complicated online school platforms, but they also have to have the English to understand the homework, and they don't have that classroom setting where they can help one another out and refer to the teacher immediately for that support. So it's been difficult from the academic point of view for students in Albuquerque. And then within the RSIP program, there's also the Newcomer Summer School program, where we host a 1 month long summer school where students can practice English and math subjects and, science and such. And we're working on building this for credit, where students can complete the summer school program with us, but also get credit at Albuquerque Public Schools so they can progress. They can progress appropriately throughout the grades. And then also there's other school-related activities and events. For example, last week we hosted an online art event where students could gather on Zoom and follow a teacher in creating some form of artwork. So this time it was those pop-up cards. You open the card and it out pops a landscape or something culturally universal. So this is my program here, the RSIP program. And then of course I do the coordination for the English program, which is also fully online and poses challenges that weren't seen before, in that we have to coordinate getting pre-literate clients onto Zoom, understanding how to access Zoom, even just muting, unmuting, turning the camera on, stuff that we've all had to learn to do during COVID. And we currently offer 4 English classes a week. We have a intermediate advanced course Tuesdays and Thursdays, and we have our pre-literate beginner course on Wednesdays. And there are some opportunities for volunteer in the ESL program that I will talk about, I believe, in the next slide. Perfect. Okay, let me go through all of these because here we go. So with gathering measures put in place, there are some volunteer opportunities that are not as salient as they were before. So for opportunities on the farm or with Beyond the Plate, and with the employment program, which connects clients to employment opportunities in Albuquerque, there aren't many volunteer opportunities currently, but hopefully in the future we'll see those opening up again. Currently, we have mentorships open with the Refugee Career Pathways program, which is run by Ginger at Lutheran Family Services. And this is for normally younger clients who are looking to enter a specific career field like nursing and caretaking, truck driving, earning that commercial driver's license and so on. And in their volunteer capacity, mentors are paired with a client and mostly just check in on them, say, hey, have you done this? Have you completed your coursework? Are you having any issues? Do you have any questions? And so it's kind of a cultural mentor in a way, someone who is just there for them for support and for communicating any issues that might arise during their studies or during their work, their career. And then we have tutoring, kind of the vague category of tutoring. So this could be tutoring within the school program, tutoring K through 12, kindergarten through 12th grade students with homework and with English and understanding how to submit homework online, and also just checking in on them, saying, hey, are you going to class? Are you engaging with the lessons rather than just kind of turning on the lesson and walking away? And then also we're in pretty, I guess, I don't want to say dire need, but there is demand for ESL tutoring, where we have lots of clients who maybe might not be able to attend the English classes, or they need some extra support in developing their English skills. And so how this works is I would connect you, or I would connect a volunteer to the student through an interpreted phone call with an interpreter to establish that initial day and time. And then from there, the volunteer would work with students on a weekly basis, or however long they wish to develop some conversational skills. And then I put here special events. So this is mostly for deliveries. We have contactless deliveries for food boxes or for school supplies. And so sometimes we're in need of volunteer support for those willing to drive to a client's location and drop it off at their front door. And also other events like moving, setting up apartments for new arrivals, and also, for example, like that online art event I mentioned, where maybe a volunteer could be there to help facilitate understanding and instruction. And then currently, I believe we're also taking mentors for the ICM program. So this is similar to the Refugee Career Pathways mentor I mentioned earlier, where volunteers would check in with ICM clients and make sure everything is going well, and they're receiving the services that they've signed up for. And then finally, I've put donations. Currently, we're always taking donations. Currently, we're not taking clothing. I don't think we often take clothing, but the main donations that are really appreciated are old furniture for apartment setup, hygiene products, of course, unused, hygiene products for clients who are going to enter the workplace or enter school, and blankets, silverware, houseware, stuff like that. Of course, for houseware, for furniture, we welcome, used furniture, but, in the past we've gotten unusable furniture, a chair with 3 legs, it's so if someone wants to donate any furniture, houseware, it can be used, but, functional. So the process for getting involved with either volunteering or setting up donations is to first go through Sandy Bartholomew, and she is our volunteer coordinator at LFS. You could always contact me if you have a question or if you're interested in being involved with LFS, but then I would connect you with Sandy, because she is the one that begins that process. And so if you contact her, then she will discuss with you what the best fit for volunteer opportunities is. So if you never want to leave your house and you don't want to do deliveries and move-in day, that's perfectly welcomed. And, we'll find an opportunity for you to work with maybe mentorship or tutoring, or just even checking in with clients once in a while. And then she will send you a volunteer orientation through email, which kind of goes over the information I went regarding, what a refugee is, what the process in place is, and how what information is needed for you to volunteer with the organization. And then for me, I kind of went over the process of being involved with ESL, but if you're interested with any ESL tutoring, English tutoring, working with clients for conversation or literacy, she would then refer you to me, or you can contact me directly, and I'll talk with you, what level you'd like to work with, what kind of students you would like to work with, and the platform on which you'll work virtually. And then I usually provide a sort of training on using Zoom to optimize those sessions with students, and providing resources for you to use and such. And so here I've put my my contact information at the bottom. I can also put it in the chat if it's easier as well. And then, yeah, so I want to ask her, are there any questions I can answer? Any comments?
What kinds of languages primarily do they come, whether from Dominican Republic, from Africa? Do they all come with their tribal languages? Or
Yes, so I would say all of our African clients speak both Swahili and their ethnic language. So many clients come speaking Bembe, which is their ethnic language, and Swahili, which is kind of the lingua franca of Central Africa. But there are so many African languages that we're very lucky they all speak Swahili because that's the most accessible language for interpretation. And then for Afghani clients, most of them speak Dari or Pashto. And we do have, most of our asylum seekers speak Spanish, and we have French speakers. So it's quite a diverse language population we have.
How many people work in your organization? And then how many refugees, asylees do you work with?
So let me see. At the Albuquerque branch, I believe there are, I'm trying to think of everyone in the office, probably nine or 10 people that are here in Albuquerque. And we also have a smaller sub branch in Las Cruces, but it's kind of all one branch under the Albuquerque name. So there's probably 9 or 10 of us here in New Mexico. And then in terms of the refugee population in total, I don't know the full number. I know in the past we could have up to 50 families or more in 1 year come to Albuquerque, but many of, let's say, those 50 families would then out migrate to Michigan or Kentucky or other places where they know they have connections or community members. But this year, well, last year we only received 5 refugee families throughout the whole year. And that number is not necessarily normal. That's just due to policies in place. And so, again, from year to year, it can vary. But, before I came to Lutheran Family Services, I wasn't aware of the refugee population. I didn't think there were any in Albuquerque, but there's, a good, a stable community of Afghani and Congolese newcomers in New Mexico.
Are you aware of any that you've been working with, any of the people who have some connections with Habitat for Humanity for the possibility of a future home for them? That's how I became acquainted with what you've been doing, and I was wondering if there's any more that are still there and working towards getting a home.
Yeah, so I don't know too much about the relationship with Habitat for Humanity. I know that when I go furniture shopping for apartments and such, we often go to the Habitat for Humanity store in Albuquerque. And, in terms of clients accessing housing, usually we'll resettle them in an apartment in Albuquerque. Usually it's kind of along Central in that area. And then in terms of when they want to buy a home, I'm not too involved with that side of operations, but
Yeah, that's probably the next step, because they certainly need a job where they have sufficient income to take care of all of the situations. So that may be a little farther down the line
Hmm.
from what you're doing with. Your picture of all of that large group, I noticed a number of European white people. Are they tutors that were part of that group picture that you took? Near the end of your presentation, you had a large group that you had you showed off there,
Let me
and there were
let me see. Oh, here.
yes, that's yeah.
So this was the I think it's a picture from a school event, and I think those are like tutors, you know.
Those are tutors that you had working with them.
Mhm.
What about vaccinations for COVID? Is that something that you're able to manage for all of the people with?
So yeah, this picture was definitely taken pre-COVID, but I'm trying to restart some special events like these, but in a virtual setting, such as like an art event or, um, you know, a guest speaker or something of that manner, because yeah, we can't do these kinds of
No,
activities in groups, and all of the tutoring is virtual.
but right now, most of us are waiting, having signed up for vaccinations.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if they're able to participate in the same way that they have signed up. Not necessarily these people we're looking at, but
Mhm, mhm.
5 families you were talking about.
Yes, so we're hoping that the vaccine can be distributed as as soon as possible, and after that, um, programs like the summer school and these special events can start to
Yes,
reconvene once everyone is vaccinated. I think a struggle that we have with our um, client base is that there are lots of preconceptions or lots of misinformation going around regarding the vaccine. And of course, I'm not going to go into, you know, it's people's choice of whether they want to get that vaccine, but we are really trying to educate our client base regarding getting this vaccine, because for a lot of us Americans, we maybe have a better understanding or more trust in the vaccine, but on that side of things, it can be a bit more complicated. So we're working on that. So before these groups commence, we have to make sure all of our client or the clients who are participating are vaccinating and engaging in precautions and such.
Diana, I've been in touch a little bit with LIRS recently and supporting through that channel, but they are ramping up and getting ready for quite an increase in the numbers that will be coming. They expect to be a change in policy and government. And so I'm wondering if you're ramping up too and doing some planning for that.
Yes, so that's something we're definitely discussing, where we're going to have to switch gears for our organization in Albuquerque, because for some time we've been getting such low numbers. But we do expect, I don't know the exact number, and I don't necessarily know from where newcomers would be coming from, because I'm sure that's a part of the change in policy, but we are gearing up for an increase in arrivals in Albuquerque. I don't know if it will quite be at the level it was um, some years ago, but it's definitely, I think it will be increasing.
I have a question about health services. Is there one place where if they need medical treatment that you take that they go to, or how is that handled?
So yes, so all of our clients, all of the newcomers who come to Albuquerque are on Medicaid, and they also have either through Blue Cross Blue Shield or Western Skies Community Care, they have a healthcare case manager who connects them to doctor's appointments and can arrange transportation to appointments, because a lot of our clients don't drive, and so there can be some issues with going to appointments on time. So they'll help with transportation in that way. And so yes, so there is aid and assistance in place for healthcare, because we know how expensive medical care can be. But in addition, there's a lot of health screenings that go on pre-arrival and post-arrival. So like I mentioned, pre-arrival, arrivals are tested for TB and various sort of, I guess, local diseases. But then when they come here, they are vaccinated and again, kind of screened for health concerns several times, especially before they get the green card. That's a big step in the process. So yeah, so we do have case management in place for access to healthcare. Are there any other questions? Oh, okay. Yes, I see a hand. I think you're on mute.
Wondered why you couldn't hear me earlier. I was wondering what their financial status was, most of them when they come over here, and how they're assisted, what agencies you use for financial assistance for them.
So yes, so LIRS, which was mentioned before, kind of as that umbrella organization for Lutheran resettlement, provides our branch with a certain amount of money to give as pocket money, I guess you could say, for clients. And there is that 90-day period after they arrive in which they get direct financial assistance, whether it be through rent, through nowadays internet is actually an essential, and buying clothes for employment and such. But then also we connect clients to food stamps through SNAP, which is the food stamp system for, I believe, for both families and single arrivals, and also TANF, which is cash assistance for families with children. And so there are several outlets of financial support that they get when they arrive, but of course, it's necessary that they start working so they can begin that journey to self-sufficiency.
I noticed the people on the farm, are they able to stay with the program over farming season? Or how long are they able to stay with the farm with a particular crop they're interested in?
So I think, so for example, in that picture that I showed, there were some clients who have been here for, 5 years, 4 or 5 years, and they can participate in the program on a yearly basis. So there's not really a time limit for being involved in that program. And I know that they can participate in the program in different ways throughout the farming season, so the coordinator for that program is very well informed about, I don't even know how you would say it, kind of farming schedules of harvest and planting and canning and all sorts of things.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions regarding the current population of refugees in Albuquerque or the global trends going on? Anything in that realm?
I have a question here, and that is, as I see the news, there's a large number of asylum seekers, refugees from Guatemala and like El Salvador right now, preparing to come to the border of the United States. What do you know of LIRS's policy, as far as that is concerned? We were in Las Cruces beforehand, in El Paso, they were, and basically those facilities were overwhelmed, at that time. And I know that Albuquerque began taking refugees from El Paso there, but then the border was suddenly closed down. So what is the LIRS's position as far as this right now? Do you know?
Yeah, so for operations within Lutheran, like our branch of Lutheran Family Services, I know that we do offer referral to legal services and intensive case management for those who are detained. But, a lot of that is sort of stunted by the fact that many of those who are detained end up being deported back to Guatemala or Honduras. And so we do offer assistance for those who are detained, and for those who are detained and then granted, I guess, some sort of ambiguous status and can live in Albuquerque and seek asylum, either through legal services that they were able to get during detainment. We do work with those kinds of clients, but I think we do have a lot of asylum seekers from Cuba, and so they get a special status as Cuban entrants. For those from Guatemala and Honduras, I think it's usually a bit more difficult for them to seek asylum through our organization. So I don't know, what will happen in the next few months regarding Guatemalan and Honduran or El Salvadorian arrivals, but a lot of them, do end up being deported after detainment.
I'm wondering, is there anything that LIRS, as far as policy, is concerned, as far as who should come in and what are the procedures as far as who should be allowed into the States and those kinds of things,
So, yeah, so LIRS does not conduct those interviews, or LIRS does not determine who comes into the country.
Yeah. I know that. I'm just wondering if they have any guidance, for, do they have any positions as far as, I'm worried about all those refugees and immigrants coming up right now and what's going to be happening to them because Juarez is such a violent, incredibly violent place, and what does LIRS recommend, as far as those people right now?
So I think their process is quite different for refugees. So LIRS is maybe not as, I guess, involved with asylum seekers. They're more involved with those who come with refugee status in place. And so a lot of the work that's being done with asylum seekers on the border is through kind of like, to put it, I guess, crudely, like ragtag, lobbyists or educators or people who come together and just go down there independently. So those large umbrella organizations like the UN or LIRS are not as involved in, let's say, like border issues, border relations.
Thank you.
Of course. And so, yeah, I guess if there are no other questions, or, if this is I guess if I've covered the basics of resettlement in Albuquerque, Again, just to kind of go over just if you are interested in being involved in some way, either through donations or through, you know, occasional volunteering, whatever the case may be. Again, you can contact Sandy, who is our volunteer coordinator, and then I can put my email in the chat to make it a bit.
So I started a little bit late into your presentation. I didn't miss too much. I did record most of this, which will make it available for our members to see. I can post that on the church's website. So if you want to refer to any of it, we can get that there.
Okay, great. That's great. Thank you.
And if you happen to have, I tried to take a couple of screenshots, but if you happen to have anything just really simple that we can put into our physical newsletter, which is like going out in the next, well, it's being readied right now. So just something really simple. And then if you have the same like very simple thing that we can put just into our normal weekly bulletin announcements. If you have anything like that sort of pre-made, that would be great. Otherwise, I'll see about whether my screenshot worked out too.
And I can send you some sort of blurb, and also I can send you the PowerPoint itself, so you can refer back to it, because I know there's lots of important information that you don't want to miss.
That sounds good.
Great.
Yeah, I think if you got the actual PowerPoint, you could pick a slide from there, Pastor Krista, that could easily go in one of those those publications.
Thank you so much, Mariana. You were just a delight and very clear, and just lots of information there. As I think we've said, Pastor Wayne and I are pretty new to Albuquerque. So for us, this is just really excellent. And I'm just thinking, we have all these retired nurses in the congregation that I would think would be of, I think we have lots of potential here.
Yeah, especially with like the refugee career pathways mentorships, and anywhere really, help and volunteer work is welcomed in any capacity, whatever your time limitations are, help is always welcomed.
I have a question. How does one teach English as a second language if they don't speak the language of the people they're trying to help?
Yes. So in terms of our ESL classes, sort of separate from tutoring, it's a lot of, especially for pre-literate clients, a lot of visuals. Some lessons, like days of the week, I've realized that I just have to put the translations on there, because it's very different conceptually in Swahili, for example, than to English. So lots of visuals, lots of repetition, lots of, I guess, experimenting with different ways to communicate, because I've kind of learned, I guess, the hard way of what works and what doesn't work. Some lessons go amazing and some lessons are kind of a flop. So it really is a trial and error process to knowing, in terms of the ESL classes as a teacher, what works in that class setting. For tutoring, again, lots of visuals. I work with volunteers for accessing Google Images, using the whiteboard, and then I also provide volunteers with resources that we have that they can use to build client literacy or conversational skills.
Once this COVID is over with, would there be possible need or interest on your part of doing a like in-person ESL, like at the church, or a group of us doing, kind of helping each other out, doing it together? Because some of us, I'm sure, have experience with ESL, and I'm sure others would love to join in, but maybe working alongside of some more experienced people. So is that like a possibility?
Of course. Yeah. Pre-COVID, we had classes at St. Tim's Lutheran Church, and we would have volunteers come in and they can kind of work on the side with students that are maybe struggling a bit more. So it's definitely easier in that classroom setting with volunteers and, you know, when you can actually gather in person.
And do you have a place there as well at your headquarters, for lack of a better term, to do it? Or do you prefer having it, doing it like out in the community, out in church space?
Yeah, our office is kind of small, so we do have it at the church because they have a nice big classroom, and they have, in fact, 2 classrooms, so we kind of split off into different groups. So yeah, I think we would have tutoring sessions at the office because it is a kind of a smaller space, but classes themselves are at the St. Tim's.
So then our ESL volunteers there's not, the training is watching, being there and learning as people such as yourself are teaching. Is that the way a volunteer is trained?
So for in-person classes, it was much easier to train or involve volunteers because we had, what do you call it, like regalia, you know, physical material that could be used to facilitate English. Whereas now, if I'm training a volunteer for ESL tutoring, it's maybe a bit more involved of a process, and there's a lot more communication where I first train them in using Zoom and different tools you can use online. And then also there's lots of communication with volunteers because, you know, sometimes students won't show up, where you have to kind of set that expectation for tutoring sessions. So now I'm much more, I guess, involved in that training.
Okay.
Well, Mariana, once again, we really thank you for your presentation, and I'm hoping as we move along and talk more and people get thinking about it, that we will get more volunteers to help with you, and we'll figure out, it may be harder until COVID gets releases some, but we'll see. We'll keep talking about it. There's lots of groups with the subgroups within the church that might still talk about it, that you have representatives from lots of the subgroups of the church. So,
okay.
So we thank you, and
Yeah.
we hope that we'll have this connection for a long time in the future.
Yes, and I thank you for having me. And again, you know, it's a great opportunity to get out there into the community. And so you have my contact information, you have Sandy's contact, so you can always contact me with questions or any inquiries.
Okay.
Very
Sounds
good.
good.
Thank you.
By the way, before I lose everyone else from the church, you'll watch for more blurbs. We are going to be having cooking demonstrations for Fat Tuesday in February. So watch for that coming. We already know Pastor Wayne's going to show us how to make pretzels. And Barb Sherrod's going to cook something. I don't know what yet, but here's your chance to practice getting ready for Lent by eating fatty foods, I guess. So be watching out for the next advertisements. I guess that's it for today. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Have a good week.
Thank you.